Theme song is up, and so are you.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. We are going to have a great show for you today. As I always say, good morning, Houston. Good morning, Northeast Texas. Good morning, Texas and the entire country. We have a great interview today, bringing sides into, well, let's say bringing sides together. Anyhow, how are my favorite folks doing in the studio? El Senor Van Weber and El Senor Reynolds. How are you guys doing this morning?
Well, I'm still saluting my radio here. We had to start off the day with a national anthem, if for no other reason but for fun.
Well, it's our national anthem, man. It's our national anthem. Van Weber,
All
what's
right.
up?
Good morning, Egberto. Good morning. Yeah, I got a little ditty here I wrote this morning. Order of the universe, growth and decay. The old need to make way for the new. Big oil, big energy need to give up the financial grip they hold on the economy and the power and influence over society. Give the power to the new generations. Stand back, watch the world grow in a new, amazing direction. 713-526-5738.
Extension number 2.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Folks, if you're going to call to say something, call now because I have a fairly long interview and then we'll take calls again after the interview. So please if you have something, hey, I needed to tell Egberto this now. You get a minute and a half to call me up right now, and then we go to an interview I think you guys are going to like. You know, it's about the... Let me tell you the story as I wait for a call. I got an email, right? And I get emails, a whole ton of emails every day. And this particular one stood out, right? This was from a right-wing anti-abortion abortion activist. They like to call themselves pro-life. I call it anti-abortion, as most people should, because pro-life is believing in policies that support everybody, policies that create life, policies that maintains life. It turns out that many folks on the right, that is not effectively what the policies do. So when I got this email, the email said, I watch your show. I would love to be on your show. And I'm a pro-life person to the time, gave me the whole shrilt and started to tell me that, I guess how wrong we are on the lefties. The lefties are so wrong about the issue. I said, okay, nice. I immediately replied and I said, can you do the interview tonight? And she said, yes. And that's what we're going to play right now. Haven't got any calls, so let's go ahead and get that started, and I'll take calls after the interview. It's a long one, but we'll get through this. So here we go right now. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Today we are honored to have Jacinta Robin. Jacinta Robin is the director of the intern program at the Center for Bioethical Reform. She is a pro-life renowned speaker. She is a Jacksonville, Florida resident and is on the state board of Florida Right to Life. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Jacinta. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Well, I had to talk to you, especially in these times where we're having this large fight about pro-life, pro this or that sort of thing. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're doing what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. I got hired with CBR about 2 years ago. They invited me to take over their summer intern program, and I agreed to do it. I'm a Florida resident, and they are in Tennessee. So that should show my commitment. I agree to come up here just for the summer to run the summer intern program because I'm passionate about this work. I want the next generation of pro-life activists to know what I know and what I've learned over the last 10 years. So I'm 34. I know I look young, but I'm 34. I learned about what abortion was when I was 17.
Let me ask you to stop before we get there, because what I'd like to know is I'd like to know a little bit about your history, maybe your religion, how you grew up, that sort of a thing.
Ah, I see. Okay. I was raised Catholic. and I have maintained that faith. So I am a present practicing Catholic. That was a part of what led me to doing pro-life work. We actually have a stance where we're against birth control and we are against abortion at all stages of development. I'm from a family of 7, so we have 2 in heaven, and I have 4 remaining siblings. I'm the first of all of them.
Meaning you're the eldest.
I'm the eldest, yes. That's a lot of fun. It's a lot of responsibility. So I'm right in my element doing the intern program because I'm mentoring, and that's just something I feel like I've done my whole life, is showing people what to do. That's just kind of how life was growing up. So I'm very acclimated to that.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you maintain the Catholic stance, which is no birth control, or you believe in absolutely no contraception, and as far as abortion is controlled, at no stage do you believe in abortion?
Correct. No artificial birth control. We do promote abstinence, even within a marriage. It's up to you to control when you want to come together as a couple. We feel like that's in your purview, that's up to you. But when that intimate encounter happens, should that result in a conception, you are now parents of a very tiny person. So
that is your core belief. Your core belief is that that as far as no contraception, and that also life begins at conception.
Yes. And it was actually my faith that drove me into the direction of pro-life activism, but it was in a very curious way. So I started college early. I started when I was 16, and I was a biology major. So I could see the baby, the one-celled embryo, and I was conflicted because that one cell to me did not look like a baby. And yet, as a Catholic, I needed to uphold the belief that this was an entity that should not be harmed and it should not be expelled at will. So I had a conflict in my own heart. I could see that this was a cell, a single-celled organism on day 1, and yet the church was saying you cannot abort in the earliest stages. So essentially I was pro-choice up until the point that the baby looked like a baby, and I had a bit of a problem. I didn't want to just ignore what the church taught, so I did some research, and what I found was very jarring. I remember I was at work. I worked as a tutor at the school for biology, and it was a Saturday. We didn't have a whole lot of students come in, so I had a whole lot of free time on my hands, and I went and I took myself to the computer and I said, I need to solve this problem. I need to figure out why the church is so insistent that at all stages of development, you should not abort. So I went to Google and I looked up abortion. I looked up early abortion. I looked up I can't remember exactly the words I put in, but I made sure that it was early. And what I found was a 2nd trimester abortion. And it had to be about 14 weeks. And I was shocked at how developed the child was. And I realized 2 things. I realized, number 1, that looked like a small human. And in my mind, I thought it wouldn't look like a small human. I thought it would look more like a clump of cells, which is what we hear all the time. I was shocked that at 14 weeks, it kind of looked like a human being. I didn't know that. What I also realized was that all of us develop at different rates. Some of us get taller faster. Some of us get wider faster. Babies develop at different rates. They're usually in the same range, but none of us grows at the exact same rate. So you're dealing with laws that are being passed, cutting off at hard breaks, 20 weeks. You can't abort past 20 weeks. But how does this politician know that the baby you're carrying isn't hyperdeveloped at 20 weeks and it can feel pain and it could survive outside the womb, Right now at 20 weeks, they have a 50% chance of survival. So it encompassed so many scenarios that it wasn't fair for there to be a hard break. I realized that we were putting this responsibility of drawing a line on people's development when everybody develops at a different rate. So then the argument is, well, we should just draw that line when it doesn't look like a baby among the earliest stages of development, which is why you're getting a lot of heartbeat bills now, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. At the very least, they're stopping it at 6 weeks. Some states are still at 15 weeks. North Carolina is considering a 12-week bill. So you kind of see everybody's kind of on that same mindset. It's like, when do we draw this line? Where do we draw that hard break where we can say, look, at this point, we know it's not human. It can't possibly be human. It doesn't look like a human being. Okay, that's where they are right now. But if they're being honest with themselves, they're doing too much. Nobody should take on that responsibility to determine when your life has value and at what point your development determines how eligible you are now to be considered a part of society. Because the second you draw a line on a seamless process of development, you're lying to yourself. Because in biology, once you get started, once that embryo is conceived, it just continues. It doesn't tell you when it, quote unquote, becomes a human being. So now you're given the burden of determining when that magical moment is. And that's dishonest because nobody has a good answer for that. That's why all these states are on different sides of the issue. So I take the approach that if it's alive and if it's human, it's a human who is being. It is a human being. And our Constitution protects human beings. So that embryo deserves protection under the law. So at that point, I know it's a bitter truth, right? Everybody's going through, after they hear my explanation, they either want me to shut up or keep going. So
did I ever once ask you to shut up?
No. But I know your viewers are probably going to be like, oh boy.
No, that won't be my viewers in this interview. That's going to be me. But I want to hear your entire frame because what I do, let me be clear to you.
Mm-hmm.
I always listen with the expectation that I can find some relevancy or some truth in what I'm hearing to see if you are going to change any one of my stances, because my theory is as follows. If we are truly a society made up of intelligent people, we should be able to listen to each other and rationalize what each other says. And after that rationalization, come to a conclusion. So that's why I asked you about your upbringing in the beginning, etc., because I wanted to know who you were or who you are. Is there something else that you want to add to that long prose? Because I think I am ready to answer quite a few of those, unless you have additional information you'd like to add to that.
I would just say once I resolved that question in my heart, I started volunteering. And every day I was doing something that I could to help advance the pro-life movement because I was convicted.
Okay, great. And that's great. Based on your Catholic upbringing. By the way, I'm originally from Central America. I was a born Catholic.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then after that, from a Catholic, I became a Baptist. From a Baptist, I went to the University of Texas, became a Maranatha, which is one of those sort of third-party type Christian churches. And after I found out that certain things about the Christian religion, I left church altogether and became a humanist. So the only thing that I'm worried about is the success of humanity, if you will. That said, I believe in the faith that you have and what you believe in, and that's fine. My first question to you, however, is that is what you believe, and that is your religion.
Yes.
That's what that is. Now, in a pluralistic society like ours, with multi-religion, no religion, whatever, how do you dare ask others to simply fall in line with what you believe. And I'm not talking abortion right now, because if you can
Okay.
do that with if you can do that with an abortion, you can do that with just about anything. We can make my religion be preeminent to what needs to be done. And I think, as nice as you are, as sweet as you are, when the statements that you're making are neither sweet or nice, because in effect you're saying do it my way. So your
Right.
comments on that?
Okay. Well, I think that's a good question. And I would separate some of what was mentioned here. So I decided to respect the idea that life starts at conception because my faith challenged me
Right.
to learn more about the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is a religious question, though.
You don't think
And
that, right?
I don't think that. So when we're out, our organization, when we go out, we do activism. A lot of times on college campuses, we'll have students come up to us and they'll say, you know, is this a religious organization? Are you guys trying to push your faith and your beliefs on us? And we say, no, this is not a religious organization. We are a science-based organization. So we are the Center for Bioethical Reform. We're targeting biological issues with an ethical perspective. So a lot of people would agree, yes.
Time out.
Pause.
Because we have to be intentional here. Whose ethics?
That's an excellent question. And this is why I'm trying to segue into my next topic. Right now in Denmark, I believe, there are no Down syndrome people. Okay, they've attested to curing Down syndrome. You want to know how they did that? They did that by testing embryos in the womb to see if they tested positive for trisomy 21. And if that gene was present, they recommended to the mother that she abort. And these mothers did. So now Down syndrome
Has been eradicated. Yeah.
I'll tell you another one. Right now in China, you have more boys than girls. How do we get that? Usually in the population, okay, the way that human beings reproduce, you'll typically get more girls than boys. I a fertility specialist who's a friend of mine, she said, if you go to bed with your husband and that night there's an egg present in your womb, you're gonna get a boy. If you go to bed with your husband and tomorrow there's an egg in your womb, you're gonna get a girl. They call it lazy sperm. That one gives you a girl, but the day of gives you a boy. It's hard to get it to happen that day of. So by default, most pregnancies are females, okay? But China has a very curious problem. There are more boys than girls, okay? India also has that problem because the girls are more expensive. When you're marrying them off, you have to marry them off with dowries. So all of a sudden, you're seeing these weird imbalances in the population, and it's abortion that's allowing this to happen. So now we're dealing with ethics, and I would not argue.
No. Actually, I will argue that. I would argue that now we're dealing with your ethics. Let me give an example, because in using the Down syndrome example, right? I could actually make the ethical argument that says, if we can avoid Down syndromes, that more of the other kids would live. I could make an ethical statement that says, let me expand a little bit more. I find that your concern for an embryo or a clump of cells, or to some extent the lack of concern for the carrier of the baby, I would find that, in my opinion, unethical. Why would I find it unethical? And that's why I said, whose ethics, right? I would find it unethical because I find that we put so much effort into an embryo that after the kids are born, the same folks who have the ideology of conservatism and non-abortion, etc., they will not support the policies that make the born kids live. So I am saying, if we want to talk ethics, if this was a real ethical issue, And as opposed to what the people you go to the universities that talk about it being a religious issue, which I think it's still a religious issue. If it were a real ethical issue, we would say, wait a minute, we care about the embryos, but when the embryos are turned into humans and born, we don't have the policies that keep them alive. We don't have the policies that prevent them from going to jail. We don't have these particular sets of policies. So it's not an ethical problem if you will allow death at the end stage, but you're trying to save something that isn't yet born.
Okay, again, I would separate the issue. So we're dealing with two issues here. We have the problem of, should we treat preborn children differently than the way we treat born children? That's one problem, because if a 2-year-old was born and he was born in a very poor environment, there was no food, there was no water, we would not address the problem of him having no food and no water by killing him.
No, we wouldn't.
No, we wouldn't. So
we would
right
feed
now,
them.
right now, all of a sudden, we want to take
but
care
you
of
don't
them.
want you don't want to feed them.
I will not deny.
No, that what I just said was a statement of fact. If you take a look
I'm
at
not
the
denying
budget,
that. I'm saying we're dealing with two issues. Well, we're
Right.
dealing with two issues. We're dealing with the mother who has to get food stamps to take care of her child, who's also encouraged to birth her child and not abort it because she doesn't have the money to feed her current child.
exactly.
Right? This is a big problem. I
Right.
understand that. But I will also tell you this. Right now, I'm an African American woman. Obviously, you're a person of color. Right now in New York City, more African American children are aborted than born.
Time
Wait,
out.
wait,
No,
I
that
gotta finish
I
this
saw
point.
that message in I normally don't interrupt the person on the interview, but
Okay.
what happens too often is we're not talking race here. The abortion issue is not a racial issue, no matter how the right would try to make it a racial issue.
I understand how it wouldn't be a racial issue.
It's not a racial issue at all. I mean, it's an abortion issue. And what the right would often do is bring race into the discussion so that people's emotions will start saying, oh, that's racist or that's not racist. The thing about it is white women, black women, Latino women, Asian women all have abortions. The reason why black women have abortion in some instances at a larger rate is because of the socioeconomic conditions. It has very little to do with anything other than that. Black women are just as promiscuous as white women are just as promiscuous as Asian women. All of those things are, I'm using promiscuity only because the right likes to use that.
They're getting pregnant, right? They wouldn't be
Right.
having the abortions if they weren't getting pregnant. I understand that. But I would challenge you to look at the situation that we have here, right? African American women are making up 14% of the population.
Yes.
That's generous. I'm afraid it might be less than that.
It's 13% actually.
Yeah, I would imagine it'll be closer to that. And right now, they are leaning to having almost 50% of all the abortions. They are almost 40% of all the abortions that are being taken place. So
that is something that's to be expected given the socioeconomic differences. If you take a look at the value, what these two different societies have, that's not at all off kilter at all.
Well, the problem, but I would still say you have encountered a complex problem, and you're not going to, you would not be doing the right thing by being the mercenary to fix one problem and ignore the other problem.
Good point.
But
Very good point.
That's what we're doing with abortion.
You see, I don't. I mean, first of all, that is an excellent point that you brought there. We don't want to be mercenaries, but I'll tell you something, Jacinta. The reality is, bringing Black kids into an America today, right? When you're poor or otherwise, it is not at all inconceivable to me why one would want to abort abort fetuses before they become what I consider a human being. Let me first tell you, I have a daughter, a little bit younger than you are. All right. And I don't want my daughter to have an abortion. I don't want I don't want any of those things for my daughter. Women don't have abortions for the sake of having abortions. We have an evil economic system in America. I mean, conservatives like to sing glory, glory, hallelujah. That's not the truth. I would urge you as a conservative to listen to my programs and come and be a part of my programs, because I can tell you something. We have an evil economic system, and the abortion situation can be cured if we actually had a humane economic system that provided contraceptives in a society that's not going to run away from sex. And if we also had care, there are a lot of people, if we had a humane society, we would actually have kids. There's a lot of women who are aborting kids, which they just cannot afford.
Okay, well, I have a few rebuttals on that, and I need to know how much time you have.
Well, we have about 6 more minutes, so go ahead.
Okay, well, what I would say to what you mentioned is that the real problem here is we cannot come to agreement on what the preborn actually is.
And that's
because
fine.
that would eliminate everything. If society could come to agreement on what was actually inside of the woman, that would put every other law in place, every other privilege and practice in place. If we could all come to agreement that it is not a human being inside of the womb, then let her do whatever she wants, and don't be sad about it. Don't say it's a tragic thing if a woman has to have an abortion. Why? It's just a clump of cells. I don't think people really believe that.
No, I don't believe that.
I think they
You're
know
right.
something really weird is happening when an abortion takes place.
You are so, I mean, you see, I don't want to deny, and that's why I said the issue is with, I mean, I believe in that, but we as a society determine where life begins. Okay.
Oh, do we now?
Yes. I mean, you
Oh, do
religiously,
we now?
yeah, let me explain this, what I mean by that. Your religion as a Catholic, you can attest to what your religion tells you where life begins. Biologically speaking, we can, there as from a point of laws, we can say where things begin and how we are going to interpret it in law. This doesn't have anything to do with
I would
religion.
challenge that.
No, no,
Biologists, 5,000 biologists came together. I need to check the numbers on this, but
you're
roughly
again. I know what you're
5,000
going to.
biologists came together, and they have confirmed
Jacinta, you're
that life starts at conception. So there's
Jacinta,
no
that's fine.
question.
Jacinta, when a sperm meets an egg, it turns into a zygote, etc. It's fine. And I'm
Right.
saying I don't care what the biologists say. I'm an engineer. I do not care what the biologists say. From a legal standpoint, we have the right as a society to determine where life begins. If you have another religious
But
option,
you're not determining where life begins because you just said that life starts at
no, no.
conception.
I
What
am
you're
saying we
determining is
determine.
where the value of that life begins. That's what you're determining.
Actually, I stand corrected. I think the way you said it was better. I think the way you said it was better. Okay. But the fact that I'm saying is this: if you believe something about your body and what you want to do, the only thing that, and by the way, I take exception to a pro-life movement. I am a pro-life person. I believe in your life. I will do everything to save you as a living human being.
Okay.
You know what I don't believe in? I don't believe in your dictatorial notion to tell another human being what they must
What
do
to do
for
with her body.
and not only that, what they must be compelled to carry, etc., etc. And that's all. I'm saying if you have a belief system, I want you to live in your belief system, and I want you to preach for your belief system. I want you to do all of that. I just don't want you to influence my belief system. And
Well,
I think
I
that
agree
is,
with you. I agree with you. You are of the pretext of my body, my choice. I cannot agree with you more. And if that woman is carrying another body and she's being honorably consistent to that value setup, then she should also honor the baby's body.
no, that's not that is a false equivalence. Let me tell you why. Because again, if she believes like I do that a fully formed human being is not one until birth, then that's not the case. And again, and I think the truth of the matter is, I think, and I'm not talking about you as a person, but you as a
Mhm.
movement has been one
Mhm.
of the most killing movements there are. Not
Why
you
do you
per
say that?
se, not you,
Why do
but
you say that?
I say that because, first of all, with the stance that women just can't have abortions, women with ectopic pregnancies and all of that have died. But let's go a little bit further. We've had men who uh, perform abortions murdered. I did an expose right here in Houston where they terrorize women going in to get abortions. There's nothing. Look, if you feel so badly about abortion, try to stop abortions from happening. Love on somebody.
I'm not
Give
the only one
somebody.
who feels bad about abortion. You
I'm
said
not.
you feel bad about abortions too.
I feel. Let me tell you why I feel bad about abortions. Okay, because I don't know. I accept my ignorance. Okay.
Ah,
I
so now
I
we
ex-
don't know,
no, no,
right? Now we
no,
don't
no,
know.
no, no. Don't get technical with me in that regard. It's okay to not know. It is
But it's not
okay.
okay to determine someone's value if you don't know.
No, no, no.
So
Actually, that's not entirely true because our values, and you as a Black woman, your value was determined and it still is determined right now because of this pigmentation of your skin. In a capitalist society, your value is much less than the value of a woman with the exact same characteristic as you. And
I,
that's another subject that I won't get
yeah, that's
into.
a
We
different
won't,
topic.
yeah, it's another topic. We won't get into that. But what I'm saying is, let's not in my no, I won't say that. I'll say it in a let's form. Let's not be naive to the reality that in society today we make choices, and not only choices do we balance our choices. And once we
Mhm.
determine that things become better. I mean, I look, you're going to have a kid sometime, I imagine, if you don't have one already, and you're going to give. What's that again?
I hope so.
Right. And you will have your values that you want to put into your kid. Work
Right.
on that. You have your sphere of influence. Work on that. In fact, if you want to go around colleges and tell folks you shouldn't have abortions, do that. But when you start codifying into law what your belief system says that you want others to do, that is my problem. I have no problem with you as a
But you're going to
person.
do that anyway. Are you a voter?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Every
so when
time.
you go to the ballot, you are imposing your belief on someone else's
No,
body.
no, we are in a democracy, right?
We we live in a constitutional republic, but even more so in a democracy. If we were a pure democracy and it was mob rule, it was majority rule,
Well, there you
we're
go.
going
Let
to
me,
lean one way or another.
no,
So
no,
if you
here's
go
this,
to that ballot, you
my
are
dear,
impacting
my
someone else's
dear,
life, right?
there are two things that we have in the Constitution, and I hate that the people on the right don't do a good job in doing this. But the Constitution, one of the fights for the Constitution was to have something called the Bill of Rights. And the purpose
Okay.
of the Bill of Rights was to prevent mob rule. So when I hear people talk about mob rule and democracy, no, we can have a real democracy with a Bill of Rights. We don't need a representative republic, as a lot of Republicans would like to
Okay, I
say,
see. I see
because
what you're
that's a
saying.
fallacy. We have a real democracy as long as we can provide, we can make sure that everybody's rights guaranteed. And that is what I want. And what I'm saying is that it should be what you want. We shouldn't be having this debate about abortion. We should actually be having the debate about keeping people alive, about making sure people have the type of health care that they need to survive. When I hear you, my dear, beautiful lady, and I don't mean to be sexist, but when I hear
Okay.
you talk about abortion, I would ask you to put that same passion into healthcare because there's a hell of a lot more people dying because of lousy healthcare provided by conservatives as opposed to abortion
We
that
have
people have to
students
take.
come up to us and tell us all the time, why don't you push more of your efforts in all these other areas, in taking care of born children and helping children get adopted to good
And
families
that's
and
a true
making sure
thing.
the
Yes.
health. Okay,
Yes.
but I would ask you this, why are not the people who are doing all those other ways of helping society improve doing anything for the pro-life movement? Why aren't they ever asked to do
Wait. It's let's look. It's not the pro-life movement. It is the anti-abortion movement because I am pro-life. I
that?
believe
Okay.
in your
Well,
life and
even still,
everybody's life. Okay, it is the anti-abortion movement, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the anti-abortion movement. Just keep it to those who want it.
Okay, were you against the abolitionists that pushed back against slavery,
You
or
bet you.
were you in favor of what they of their
I the abol
efforts?
I look, and you're going to make a very good point right there. I can read
I
the
have
point.
to, because they said sunlight was the best remedy to the
Yes,
problem that was slavery.
and
And they also said that there were no institutional frameworks in place to make it so that these newly freed slaves would have good lives. That's the same argument used to enshrine abortion. We're not
I
going to give them
love,
great lives.
you know, I love the way that is usually stretched, right? And that's fine. You know as well as I do that nobody wants to see partial births. Nobody wants
Right.
to see all these things. Nobody.
Right.
And also, I think if you want to be honest, this and the reason why I don't call you a pro-life movement, I call you an
Anti-abortion.
anti-abortion
And
movement,
I take that as a compliment.
and that's fine. And but we need to get our nomenclatures or narrative correct. I believe that I leave just I want Jacinta to be able to do, and I'm gonna we're way over, but you know
Sorry.
I really enjoyed talking to you because we're not having a shouting match. I don't know. Let me tell you, there's nothing that you said. I wanted you to change something in my mind because, like I said, I am. Whenever I get into these discussions, I'm hoping that I learned something that kept you so passionate at what you're doing.
Mhm.
And there are times that my mind is not changed necessarily, but modified in the way that I believe something. Unfortunately, you didn't do that because what I continue to see, no, and this is not a negative statement at all. Uh, what what I hear from you is it's the same narrative, right?
Okay, you're hearing the buzzwords and you're tired of the buzzwords.
I'm not, but what I'm saying is, it's not just buzzwords that I'm hearing. It is almost an uncaring, right? For white most women, and I didn't say all. It's almost an uncaring for what a lot of women go through when
And
they're going to have an
I can
abortion.
sympathize with you on that. I can sympathize with you on that. If I'm talking to girls who are considering their options, it is challenging because it's a lot easier to argue with a law than it is to convince a person to keep a baby, right? It's a lot easier to argue with a congressional member than it is to argue with a woman that is in crisis that needs help. So to that, I agree. This is callous because I want the issue to be black and white. With a woman who does need help, who is confused and doesn't know what to do, compassion is in order. And I agree with you. But we need to be clear about what that compassion is. Compassion is not gaslighting. And compassion is not ignoring the full story. Women want to keep their children. The reason why they abort is because they feel they are unsupported and because they have been lied to about what they are aborting. A lot of women who miscarry at 9 weeks or who abort at 9 weeks, who abort at home, they see what was delivered from their body. They attest that this is not a blob of tissue. They're looking at a very small human being, but it's not a blob of tissue. And groups that abort for women regularly are regularly lying to them. That is problem number one. Problem number two is support. If a girl sees her unborn child on a sonogram, she's 85% more likely to keep her baby. That's the issue of it not being a blob of tissue that was corrected. If her boyfriend is there and agrees to help her with that pregnancy, that number goes up from 85% to 95%. Why? Because now she has the support to take care of her child. We have a maternal instinct to take care of the child that is within us. It is unnatural to opt
what is
for abortion.
so amazing with all that you're saying right there is you're actually making the points. You're just about making the points of the those of us who are really pro-lifers, those of us who are really pro-choicers. And the reason why is that is something that we've always said. If we had a support system, abortions would go away. Now, it's not about it's not about this fight that you see, you are fighting, in my opinion, the wrong fight. You should be fighting the healthcare fight. You should be fighting the fight to support women. You should be fighting. Those are the fights that you should have. I'm going to wait for the time that you're going to go home and you're going to think things, or well, you're probably home already, but you're going to think things through, and you're going to say at some time, that guy that I just sent that letter to that brought me on, just maybe he had a tad of stuff that I can actually change within my stance.
Yes, I will say I learned a lot from this interview, and
So
if that's the approach that I need to take to get effective change accomplished, I will do that.
And let me and like I said, if you really want to be a difference, you can be, but go where the problem really is. The problem isn't telling a woman don't abort. The problem is saying, and you had the answer. It's not me. You had the answer. Where people are supported, abortion goes away.
Oh yeah, women don't want abortion.
But again, until that occurs, abortion will remain, and I want it to remain, because abortion is also an economic issue. If you, Jacinta, if something happened to you, God forbid, and I won't use the word.
No, I understand.
And something happened to you, a bright young woman with a life ahead of her, that would materially change your life. And to tell me that you will never ever consider, I just may have to do this because when I weigh things out here, that's the issue. Don't ever put yourself in that condition, in my humble opinion, that is. So Jacinta, let me tell you, I enjoyed the conversation. You're a very smart woman, and you'll be, I mean, very smart woman. And you can, are you a lawyer?
I know.
You know, so, but
my dad is a poli-sci major, and we argue all the time. So maybe I should think about that.
But if you really, in my opinion, if you can do so much more good for women on the other side of the aisle. So really consider that, because those are the women who need help. We don't need the attacks.
Yes,
what we need are the help on women. So thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right, Jacinta Robin.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I see that Moses is waiting. Moses, sorry for keeping you that long, but it went over. Talk to me.
Okay. What I have to say, good morning.
Good morning, Moses. How are you doing?
I'm fine. There is something called gullibility. And where do you see most gullible people? Are the people who have eyes to see and they are blind. Religious zealotry makes it prelate death. Slavery, past and present, has aborted millions of human beings. And this woman who said she's a black woman cannot understand that, can only see in front of her toes and refuse to look deeper to see the deep meaning of abortion. And to understand that the church and whatever it is, whatever she's trying to uphold, are the ones who have been committing abortion in this country and ever, as long as possible up to this day. Again, she says, she seems to be very religious, whatever. She should know judgment belongs to God. And if she understood the scriptures well, she should remember David's child was not allowed to live. Why? Because David had committed a sin. So God told David, you will go to the child, but he will not return to you. Let them get an understanding instead of being taught by the precepts of men. And one thing, after listening to her round and round, there's a proverb that says, go from the presence of a foolish person when you perceive not in them the way of understanding. You could have beat this woman with a mortar pestle. She would never understand because she is just deceived. And again, to end what I'm saying is the business of abortion belongs between the woman, her doctor, and her God. It is not the business of government, who themselves are the ones raping young girls and doing all that. It is not the business of government to go in between the legs of a woman to test her like a chicken to see if she is pregnant, then to go and make laws to prevent her from doing her personal business, to prevent her from deciding the way she chose to control her life. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you so kindly for that, Moses. I just want to add one thing. I really like listening to all sides, and if you notice, I think I think if you listen to the end of that interview, she opened her mind to do some thinking. Things like that have to be nurtured. We have a system that has really screwed people's minds up, not only on the abortion issue, but on the economic issue, etc. Just like she has been confused and fooled about what is ethical and what is moral based on her belief, so has most Americans been confused on an economic system and a whole lot of other things. So while we may say how confused she is on the abortion issue, the amazing thing is that so many more of us are confused about other things as well. And one of the things I like to do with listening to everybody is giving me the opportunity, with the same respect I give folks to that I listen to them, that they also would listen to me. So I thank you so kindly for your statements as well, Moses.
I understand that, and I do hope she goes and studies to show herself approved.
Thank you, my sister.
Okay, bye-bye.
You have a wonderful day. Let's go to Michelle. Michelle, come on in, and then we'll go to Tag.
Hi, yeah, I think I missed part of that conversation with Moses, but I did catch that one with Jacinta, and I work in healthcare, and she was adamant for all women. No one person has the right to speak for all race, or all economic backgrounds, or all genders. She said that women don't want abortion. You can't speak for them. You can only speak for yourself. I work in healthcare. There are plenty of women who come in for an abortion and they want an abortion. Now, whether it's for economic, for whatever reason going on in their household or in their background, they chose to have that, and they should have that right to choose whether they get an abortion or not. And it's really not why they chose that. Now, if you want to offer them wraparound services and say, oh, because we're going to offer wraparound services, abortion will decrease, that's fine. But you can't, or you should not want to take away a woman's right to choose what she does with her future and her child. That's not right.
Michelle, Michelle, but stay on a while. Let me just say, I was not trying to be presumptuous when I also acknowledge that most women don't want abortions. What I guess I should have said is, and first of all, I also believe every woman should have complete autonomy over their bodies. That's not my choice. That's your choice. I assume you're a woman. That's your choice, right? Now, that said, the fact that somebody comes in for abortion means that they don't want the results, whatever is occurring in them, and I think that is a position that I'm coming from, not from a position of being over a woman or speaking for a woman, but saying what the woman is actually doing. If a woman comes in, it means that she doesn't want what is currently occurring in her body, and I think you would concur with me on that, Michelle.
Exactly. That wasn't my concern. My concern was just and saying that all women don't want an abortion. That we have a maternal instinct to take care of our children. True, but if you cannot take care of your children, you also have a maternal instinct to take care of yourself.
Agreed.
And that comes first. You cannot provide for yourself, then you cannot provide for a child. And everyone should know that. That's common sense. That's A plus B equals C. So if you're
right
already
now, Michelle,
whatever your economic situation is,
Michelle, you're right. Now, in speaking to people, however, and I think that it is my duty again to listen to see where people are, and I think we should, for those of us who can try to do that, I think we should all do that because again, there are enough of these people out there that look at how the laws have changed in several of these states. We have to get to these folks because you know what? They're voting too. So that's the stance I take in trying to bring minds together. Anything else you want to say, Michelle, before I jump on to Tag?
That was it.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day. All right, let's go to Tag. Come on in, Tag.
Morning, Edberto. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Great. One thing I just blows my mind is that these pro-life people, they aren't really very forthcoming about when there is no life there anymore. And the fact that abortion covers such a huge range of situations, kind of like what you were alluding to, is that if there is no life, you still may need to have an abortion. And these pro-life people don't talk about that at all. I think it's a shame that they don't cover that topic. And the other thing that really blew my mind about this gal is she went right off about talking about China and talking about what is it,
Denmark, where there's no Down syndromes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's what I was thinking about. And it's not, that doesn't directly apply to us. We're not really headed in that direction. And so to try to bring that, if she wants to fight that battle, she needs to go to China or she needs to go to Denmark. I mean, the pro-life movement, they don't need to throw that in our face, and so if you take 100% of what's called an abortion in this country, and you're really looking at what's a viable fetus that's being aborted, it probably goes down to 10-15%. It's 20% maybe. The fact is that the anti-abortion moniker covers so many different things, and the pro-life people don't really want to talk about that at all. So that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Yeah, well, Michelle, I think when Michelle called in, Michelle laid it out, right? And I think that's a stance most of us true pro-lifers have, right? I mean, I notice I'm calling Michelle a pro-lifer. I am not going to allow, and you heard me tell that to Jacinta as well. I don't allow them to walk away with that moniker. I am pro-life. Howard is pro-life. Van Beber is pro-life. Jack is pro-life. Augie is pro-life. Tag is pro-life. We believe in the life of the living. We believe in maintaining those who are alive. That is what we believe in. So, they are anti-abortion, and she acknowledged that as well. So that is where we have to keep. We can't use their naming conventions. We have to use the real naming convention. Anyway, Tag, anything else before I jump to Augie?
That's it. Thanks, Egberto. Have a good day.
Thank you, brother. You have a great day. Come on in, brother Augie.
Good morning, Egberto. I'd like to start to the show with the national anthem. I almost got up to attention and saluted.
Well, you know Howard, man. Howard is going to keep us at attention.
Yeah. And that thing about pro-life, yeah, you're right. Somehow people have forgotten history. We've had abortions in the 50s and 60s, 70s, when there were all these anti-abortion laws, and they had teachers and nurses and housewives that had abortions because there wasn't any health care plan for these women. And if these pro-lifers really care, they should go into a Planned Parenthood center and see these lines of women, young and middle-aged. They're not happy and all that. They're sad. They're making these choices that are, important to them that they may not want, but for whatever reason, that's what they're doing. And these pro-lifers, like you said, they're not life.
They're anti-abortionists. Yes.
Yeah, and there's this black reverend that had a really good saying about that. If you're a pro-lifer, you care about the baby from the womb to the tomb. If you don't follow through that, then you're really not pro-life.
And that's what I'm saying. The real pro-lifers are generally progressives, right? Because we're the ones fighting to get policies out there that really keeps kids alive, that keeps people alive, that keep the elderly alive. So, I mean, I don't allow Augie them to reframe the debate. And again, Jacinta, I think she's a wonderful young lady, a very smart young lady that just has been, her mind has just been, and most pro-lifer, people that call themselves pro-lifers, I don't think they're bad people. That is just what that is just how they were programmed by a sect in our society. And I think the way that we get to them is, first of all, we do what we do to make sure people's lives are better, but at the same time, we talk to them. And, I think we had the conversation. This interview was supposed to be 22 minutes. It went about 43 minutes, and I was able to cut 5 minutes because I didn't want to cut anything that changed what she had to say. I didn't want to make it a biased cut. So that's why I couldn't get it beyond 39 minutes. But anyhow, again, what you're saying is very true, sir. But anything else, Augie, before we got to close this baby down?
Well, and pro-lifers, some of them, they go kill doctors and nurses and staff and blow up the building. A doctor was killed in church by a pro-lifer.
All right, Augie, thank you. I got to go, but thank you so kindly for coming in. And it was great seeing you on Sunday, brother. Take care.
Yeah, it's great seeing you dance.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Anyhow, Howard, give me a few thoughts. I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts.
Well, I think that Moses had it right here when she said the decision should lie between a doctor, a woman, and her God. And those are the only three that should be involved.
Yes.
No politicians, no government, no regulations. Just stop it. It's
Agreed.
a right we have. It's a right we should have. Vote them out if they think otherwise. And that's what I got to say. Now, Jack has something to add here.
Jack, can you do it for me in like 30 seconds?
Yeah. I want to talk about the universal right to be wrong. On both sides of the fence, we have to give the person the right to make the wrong decision for them because it may be the right decision for them.
Love it. Love it. Folks, thank you so kindly for the calls. Thank you so kindly for listening. And also thank you so kindly for listening to Jacinta. I'm going to try to bring other folks that doesn't necessarily share the same views that many of us have here, but I think that's how we make change. I think we have to talk to all sides. We have to listen to all sides. And, like I told Jacinta, I was hoping that she would say something that changed my mind because people do that, right? It didn't happen there. And I guess Moses and Michelle pretty much points out why that didn't happen. Anyway, folks, I want to thank Jack Van Beber on the phones and thank Howard Reynolds for just keeping that place alive. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.